Welcome into the Illini Cast, part of the Big Banter Podcast Network. I'm Austin Berkland, alongside co-host Sonny Verma, and we just had a Valentine's Day, and Illinois gave us the biggest and sweetest gift is a win over the Michigan Wolverines, and Brad Underwood still undefeated against Juwan Howard. Sonny, initial thoughts on that Illinois win over Michigan?
I mean, I talked about it on the post game show with Cody. We needed a win like that. Like even over the last handful of games, wins and losses, they've been kind of tense. Where we're coming out of the games, even the games we win against like Ohio State, we win, but we don't exactly look all that impressive. And then, I mean, let's be honest. We know Michigan is a bad team, but more than that, it's that 7-0 record against Juwan Howard. You just don't want that to snap because, even the morale of the fan base would have dropped a bit if that had fallen. So, the fact that we can go 8-0 now against Juwan Howard, we don't know if we're going to play him again. Whether they make advance in the Big Ten tournament or whatnot. I can't see possibly how he lasts another year unless their AD is really just kind of clueless and not listening to his fan base. But yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I don't think my wife is watching this. This was the ultimate Valentine's Day present for someone like myself, and there's a reason I'm grinning ear to ear.
I mean, this was a game where with 4:48 left in the first half, it was 28-25 Illinois, and it turned into a 97-68 victory where Terrence Shannon Jr. had 31 points, 48% from the three-point line as a team, and then 38 rebounds to 29. That's just domination from the second half, and that's what you like to see. We haven't seen a lot of those step on the throat moments for the Illini, and this was one of them, and this was an emphatic one, and it gives a lot of Illini fans some relaxation because we haven't seen that in a while.
A long time. I mean, when was the last time we saw a performance like this? That team on Saturday, I think it was Saturday. That team could beat almost any team in the country when we're shooting like that. When Terrence Shannon, we've talked about how Shannon, like every game by game, he's slowly getting his game back. The only thing really missing after that Michigan State game was his ability to make those 3-point shots. But even those are falling against, Michigan. So if he gets that back, we kind of get our alpha guy back, essentially Terrence. Terrence running down, in transition, dunking the ball, making wide open threes. That just opens up a facet of our team, of our game on offense that, I know our defense is struggling, but essentially the opposing offense is going to have to play perfect basketball on that side of the court in order to beat us. And, the vibes are good. The vibes are good.
I mean, the last time that a domination game like this happened probably was Northwestern, that 96-66 win, and that was the one of the first games without Terrence Shannon Jr. Due to his suspension. So the fact that you got this with Terrence Shannon again, it kind of is like a resetting point for the Illini. So I think this is huge going into a stretch of Maryland, Penn State, Iowa, and then of course ending this season with Wisconsin and Purdue. I mean, this is a game that is just such a confidence builder that can do wonders for a game against Maryland.
I mean, the Big Ten might be out of the question now with the way Purdue's playing. And, Purdue looks like I just got the final score. They did end up beating Minnesota by about 8 points today. They were down early in that game. But, Purdue's the best team in the conference. It's okay to just kind of admit that and say it. But that double bye in that Big Ten tournament is so important. And, I know Wisconsin just won their last game, but they seem to be floundering a little bit. Northwestern receiving that news about Ty Berry being out for the rest of the season, that's going to hurt them.
They just lost today as well.
Oh, did they? Okay. Yeah, that's right. You're right. They did lose to Rutgers which, by the way, how lucky are we to have our 2 games with Rutgers out of the way already?
Absolutely. They are a team That's like a fine wine. They get better with age. And if you can get them early on, then you are doing something great. Because we've seen Rutgers, even with a different coach, last game of the season. That's not a time when you want to go to the rack or the arena formerly known as the rack, because that's where problems arise for the visiting team.
And it's the return of Jeremiah Williams. Like as he's been back for 4 games, and for 4 games, Rutgers has played like a legit NCAA team. Now, I mean, is it too late? Yeah, probably. But when you think about next year, when you have Williams and those 2 recruits with Ace Baldwin, I think it was, and like Dylan Harper or something like that, 2 top 3 guys coming in, Rutgers is just going to be a really, really good team next year. And I think they've got a game against Purdue coming up, which obviously again Purdue's Purdue, but Steve Pikiell's a really good coach, and that team is on fire, and they're feeling super confident right now. So they're a team to watch. Um,
I, I mean, if Michigan State is on the bubble at an 8-6 conference record, Rutgers is only at 6-7. If they can cobble some victories in a row, they might be a team that can steal a bid from the likes of Michigan State if they keep winning. And Michigan State does their whole roller coaster of a season like they have. I mean, the possibilities are endless for Rutgers still. I'm not saying they're out, but of course they need to win. But my goodness, they're on the right track.
and not even Michigan State. I'm like, well, what led us to this conversation to begin with Northwestern? Losing one of
Yeah.
their best players. They lost today. We don't know if this is going to be a season killer for them. If they all of a sudden start struggling a little bit. I mean, Boo Booey can only play 1-on-5 for so long before he gets tired. So, Big Ten is the Big Ten. We get some teams into the tournament sometimes based on name alone, and if the Rutgers program can just kind of continue this momentum that they have, and if they can pull off an upset in a game like Purdue, I think they play Minnesota next. Minnesota just played Purdue pretty strongly tonight. Who knows? They might be able to sneak in, but I was listening to Rutgers Spaces earlier today by Aaron Brightman, a friend of the show, and they were talking about how they'd even be content with an NIT appearance this year, just because they've had such low expectations from the start of the season. But yeah, I digress. The original point, to bring it back to the Illini, let's get that top 4 seed. Let's the double bye is so important, especially the Big Ten tournament where it's so physical and teams are beating up on each other. I want to be as well rested as possible. Not that I care too much about the Big Ten tournament. If I wouldn't mind having another shot at Wisconsin or Purdue if we do lose to them that final week. But I want our team to be as well rested as possible for March Madness the following week, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, this was a get right game for the Illini, and I think there's no player that epitomized that more than Quincy Guerrier. 10 points. He was 4 for 4 from the field, 2 for 2 from behind the 3-point line, and 7 rebounds. This was almost like a vintage Quincy Guerrier game from earlier on in this Illini basketball season. So it was nice to see that Quincy show up. Coleman Hawkins did great, 17 points, and then Mark Somask had 13 points as well. Did struggle from a foul perspective. He did have 4, but my goodness, Quincy Guerrier, the spotlight was on him so much, and he delivered against Michigan. So good work by Quincy and getting his mind right and body right. Whatever he did worked, and if Illinois is going to be successful down the stretch in the Big Ten, he's going to have to play a crucial factor in that, especially with Amani Hansberry's injury.
I mean, if Quincy's shooting like that, it was disappointing because obviously when Shannon initially went out, we didn't really lose a step offensively because we're still playing our style of offense, but Quincy wasn't hesitating. He would just launch the threes from the corner spot and they'd hit nothing but net. And that just kind of helped make our offense so dangerous. Then ever since that fall, he hasn't been the same player both defensively and offensively. But we saw him come back and be the old Quincy against Michigan, and that's what we need. He wasn't afraid to get down and physical on the defensive end, And on offense, he had no hesitation shooting those threes. So, I mean, does that mean Quincy's back? If Quincy's back, we already we haven't even talked about Terrence Shannon. I'm sure we're about to talk about him in a second. But if
Is this the
Quincy,
title of the episode? Is Quincy back? I mean, honestly, like that should be the title. If he's back, that changes everything for the Illini from the Purdue game and the Wisconsin game, and then the NCAA tournament. That's such a matchup nightmare when he's right. Uh, so I mean, that that is the most valuable person on this Illini basketball court, not named Terrence Shannon. I think he is just that vitally important with his minutes.
because you're talking about at that point, I mean, the way he was playing through what I guess you can say the first week of January, like the writers were actually talking about him possibly making a third team All Big Ten in the conference. You know,
Yeah.
him playing to this level, Shannon playing to the returning to the level that he was before the drama with him started. You're talking about 4 or 5 guys on the team that could throw in 20 points with very minimal effort. You know, like it's just you won't know on any given night who to guard. Like this Michigan game, Damask did very little. He was very barely noticed in that game,
Yeah.
but he didn't need to be because Shannon. It was Shannon's day. You know, it was Quincy's day. Coleman Hawkins had a fantastic game both on offensively and defensively. It's we have a good quantity number of high quality basketball players. And if Quincy's playing like Quincy was in the beginning of the year, well, that just adds another card to our deck that just makes us all the more dangerous.
Speaking of get right, Justin Harmon, 22 minutes, 4 for 6 from the field, 8 points, one turnover, had a few rebounds as well. I mean, that is what you like to see from Justin Harmon in those minutes. 4 for 6 from the field. That's just awesome to see from him. A guy who can be a volume shooter and it not work out so well for him to see the ball go through the net. That's got to feel good for Justin Harmon after a few games of a cold streak there. And minutes wise, Ty Rogers 26 minutes, Luke Goody 14. I mean, that's kind of growth from Brad Underwood there, showcasing more faith in Ty Rogers. I know the score didn't really put pressure on Ty Rogers, but still, the minutes that you like to see those minutes for Ty Rogers be in the 20s.
And imagine my face when I saw Brad Underwood clearing the bench with 9 minutes left in the game. I already, I think we had like 12 or 13 players play against Michigan, which, you know, it's unheard of for a Brad.
Max Williams played in this game, which is just unreal. Nico Moretti had 8 minutes in this game. I mean, that's what you want to see. That's a jug inning, as Joe Madden used to say. That's whenever you know you hit the jugular when AJ Red is getting 2 minutes in the game. So kudos to the Illini for allowing these guys to get some moments and get some shine at the State Farm Center the day before Valentine's Day.
I feel like we've gone 14 minutes and haven't given Terrence Shannon his proper due on his performance against Michigan. You know, for me personally, I'm kind of sad because anytime Shannon plays against the Wolverines, betting on his overs for points and assists and rebounds is always just one of the safest bets in college basketball. Um, Especially after his old transfer drama, I feel like he kind of steps it up a notch against the
As Jawan
Wolverines.
Howard said, "You're welcome." Post game about
Bro,
Terrence Shannon Jr. Like, come on, come on, Jawan.
read the room. Your fans are already upset with you, and you're talking about guys who just torched you. Like, yeah, I could have had him. Well, okay, well, you don't have him, so why rub it in your own fan base's faces?
It
But
was like the Bruce Weber moment when Bruce said, "I wish I coached guys like Robbie Hummel." It's like, well, you didn't get Robbie Hummel. He
yeah,
was on Purdue.
yeah.
Okay, so learn to play with the players that you have, coach. And Juwan Howard learned that lesson. I think he sees the writing on the wall that this is his last year as the Michigan Wolverines coach, which is kind of crazy to see that Jim Harbaugh and Juwan Howard, both tried and true Michigan men, won't be on the sidelines of their team coming up in the class of 2025.
Mhm. So let me ask you a question though about Shannon. Like, are you officially done worrying about him, or do you still want to see another couple of games where you're fully confident that the Terrence Shannon that we saw early in the season, which folks were talking about giving Edie a run for his money when it comes for National Player of the Year, like if that Shannon is back, or you still need to see a couple more games?
I need to see it against a dominant opponent. I need to see it against either Wisconsin, I know they're barely hanging on in the top 25, or Purdue. Because even with the likes of the teams that Illinois has played, Marquette, Tyler Kolek outplayed Terrence Shannon Jr., and Marquette won 71-64. FAU, that was a Marcus Domask game where he scored 31 points in Madison Square Garden. And then against number 17, Tennessee, Dalton Connect kind of ate everybody's lunch in that game. So I need to see it against a dominant opponent to make me feel a little bit more confident in March and in the NCAA tournament. So if I can see that against a dominant opponent, I think then I will officially be out of the Terrence Shannon worry meter, at least like a lot. Like this, like right now I'm about 10% worry. Then after one of those games, I'll be at about 2%, you know?
Okay, so 10% isn't too bad, but I mean, we have a game coming up on Saturday against Maryland. I think it's a 4:30 local time game.
That
I
is
think
a weird start time.
it's national, right? I think it's on Fox.
Yep, Fox has their CBS style broadcast now that college football's over, so
Mhm.
they have some national relevant games going on their actual network.
So Maryland, obviously, they've struggled this year, but one of their high points of the season was a victory over us in Champaign. They just, I believe, yesterday were down to Iowa, but then had a strong comeback and win. They're riding pretty high right now. They essentially need to win out in order to make the tournament. They've got talented players. I think I'm pretty sure they're Big Ten preseason number 3 by the media. So the talent is there. And let's just be completely honest. The thing we're both worried about most is Brad Underwood just struggles against Maryland. Do you
Yeah,
carry over any of those worries for Saturday?
you hope not. You hope this is a weird coincidence and that kind of ends on Saturday in Maryland, because this is a team that lost in double overtime to Ohio State, who just fired their head coach. They lost to them on February 10th. They lost to Rutgers on February 6th. They lost to Michigan State on February 3rd. And then they beat Nebraska pretty handily in late January. So if this is a team that Illinois loses to, even on the road, even though the Big Ten teams struggle on the road, this is a game where you got if you put even 5 of the 7 pieces together, you should walk out of Maryland a winner. So this is a huge test on Brad Underwood to just say, guys, take care of business, do what you can do, and then you'll win this game and we'll move on. But against Maryland, that just hasn't happened. So hopefully it happens on Saturday.
It's just tough because Maryland is the type of team that's built to give us trouble. They have Julian Reese down low, and then they have potential All Big Ten first team guard in Jameer Young. So I mean, I wish I was resting easy. I've enjoyed the last couple days riding high from that Wolverines win, but I do want to see it again. And if we're able to, I mean, yeah, we've struggled again against Maryland, but we've also struggled at the rack this year, or in seasons past. And this year we had no trouble against Rutgers. Again, the previous iteration of Rutgers, but we already talked about that. So let's just do that again with Maryland. If we have a nice, solid win at Maryland on Saturday, then officially you can say I'm not on the edge anymore about where the season can take us. Whether we can, make it to the Final Four or not, I don't know. But right now, at least based on the endings of that Nebraska game and the ending of that Michigan State game, where The Nebraska game, I think, was the final 4 minutes of what the heck is going on. And with Michigan State, we had that game in hand with about 7 minutes left, and then we just stopped playing offense and let them score at will at the hoop. Obviously that was a cause of concern, but the way we performed against Michigan, and Brad Underwood talked about in the press conference that particular week, they spent 100% of their attention working on defense. They identified something and they worked on that and just that. They worked on what do you call it? That they were being too soft. I think those were the words that he was using. So now, was that fixed against Michigan, or is just Michigan really, really bad, and so they weren't able to take advantage of what the other teams were exploiting? I think we're going to kind of get an answer to that on Saturday against Maryland.
Yeah, you would like to think it would be a blend of Illinois just getting tougher on the defensive side and Michigan being that bad. I would like to think it would be a combination, but this will be a true test of that against Maryland. So looking ahead to 2024 Illinois football, Vegas has released their over and unders for Illinois football, and we are at 5.5, a little higher than I anticipated. Vegas being that confident in Illinois with the new schedule. But Sonny, what are your initial impressions of 5.5?
I think that's the right number. I think Vegas, the under is juiced a little bit. I think I saw the under was at like minus 140. So that tells me, obviously Vegas wants you to bet the under. So Vegas thinks that they're going to lose less than 5.5. I already know where you stand. We've had a couple comments. I don't know if you've seen on our videos where like the guy on the left is always a little negative and the guy on the right is pretty positive. And I guess that's a pretty fair way to describe our relationship as co-hosts of this show. And that doesn't change here. I'll be honest. I think, I've looked at the schedule. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that we get to 6 games, but I really think that, I like some of the two of the new hires. We have one left. We haven't really talked about it, but we'll save that for a future show. Some of the hires that Brett has brought in on defense, some of the transfers we brought in, particularly on the offensive and defensive line. I'm gonna put my faith in Brett. I think he'll make the necessary adjustments, and in 2024, our Fighting Illini will go bowling.
I mean, I know I have been extremely negative, but the schedule does look bright in terms of a bowl game. Like Eastern Illinois, that should be a win. Kansas, I think that's a little bit more of a Kansas lean, but being in Champaign, that could change some things. Central Michigan, that should be a win. That's 2 right there. I'm going to say 2 that are probably over 75% chance of winning. At Nebraska, probably not. At Penn State, probably not. Then you have a bye week, which is a great timed bye week for a home game against Purdue, which I think that's a win. That's 3 right there.
That's a must win.
Lose, yes, absolutely. So for Illinois to ever make a bowl game again with the permanent rivalries, you just have to sweep Northwestern and Purdue, win your couple bye games in the non-conference, then boom, you're at 4 right there. Then just figure 2 more out. But yeah, Michigan and Oregon are next. I think those are both losses. But then I think you continue your dominance against PJ Fleck in Minnesota. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. And then you have another great bye week with Michigan State, which I think can be a win. So that's 5. Then just figure 1 out against Rutgers and Northwestern, and there's 6 wins right there.
Rutgers is tough because I think we play away that game.
Yep.
So that might be a tougher game, but I think I'm not exactly all aboard this Northwestern train like everyone else seems to be. I really think that performance that they had last year was straight out of a Disney movie, and they might be facing some hard time this next season. Now that the shine has worn off. So we'll see, but that's definitely a game that I think we can and should win. And by my math, then that would bring us to six.
Yep.
Um, I mean, who knows? Even earlier in the season, yeah, Nebraska's got a lot of publicity, from their fan bases with their off season, like recruiting and transfers and bringing in that 5 star. But guess what? That 5 star is a freshman quarterback. And so, catching a freshman quarterback relatively early in the season is when you want to, you know, play the guy. So, we'll see if their defense takes a little step back. Who knows? We might be able to sneak out with the win uh, in Lincoln. We did the 2 years ago. So, who knows? You might be able to pull that off. I know it's a Matt Rule second year jump that everyone's kind of banking on, but, their over under was 7.5, which I think it's a little too high, but I think that's one of those numbers that's juiced up, like the Cubs and Notre Dame and Dallas Cowboys numbers are always juiced up a little bit because they got such large fan bases that Vegas knows that they are always going to be optimistic and try to bet the overs on.
Yeah,
But
that Nebraska schedule toward the end of the season is kind of crazy hard. You have Ohio State on October 26th, then UCLA that eases up. But then you have at USC in Los Angeles, then you have Wisconsin and then Iowa to end the year. I mean, that is a very tough 3 game stretch that Nebraska drew right there. So I wouldn't be counting any chickens before you hatch if you're Nebraska, because obviously you have Coach Prime to are early on in the season, and that could destroy all of Nebraska's confidence, because that's the one thing about Nebraska is that they come in with a world of fire, then they have their one major loss, then it all comes crashing down to the floor for the Huskers. And that's been their formula year after year after year, no matter who the coach is. Bo Pelini, Scott Frost, Mike Riley, the list goes on. That's how Nebraska gets got, is they get one loss and they just don't have the mental fortitude to handle it.
and we'll definitely go team by team, taking a look at everyone's over unders and their schedules for an off-season episode when we're looking to kind of make some more content. And by the way, if you guys have any more ideas, please let us know in the comments what you want us to talk about when it comes to Illinois sports or Big Ten sports or whatnot. Please like and subscribe, of course. But awesome. Before we get going, I did want to talk to you about one more thing, and that was the midseason Naismith player list excluded a certain name, and that was Terrence Shannon Jr.'s. Obviously, he was on the preseason, and he's had a great season so far, at least on the court. Is this something where we, as Illinois fans, just kind of have to be resigned to just acknowledging that despite the details that we seem to be more familiar with, the national media is not really paying attention, and he's just not going to even make the finalists for these things?
I mean, the greatest ability is availability for these lists, it feels like. I mean, Carson Wentz, go back to 2017, I know it was an injury, but he had the best season as a quarterback going into that final stretch of the year. But he missed the final 4 games, lost MVP. So, regardless of the innocence versus guilt thing, whenever you miss that amount of time in a college basketball season when there are limited number of games, it's not like the season is 82 games long like in the NBA. So every single game has to matter for these awards. And for Terrence to miss that amount of time, even though how efficient he has been in the games that he's played in, I feel like it is fair to leave him off the list, even though that the suspension might be um, ill-gotten. Um, we'll find that out once Terrence's actual court case happens. But I think it is fair just simply because of the games played that he's had.
So he's missed 6 games, I believe. I guess my question to you though is, do you think that's the reason that he's not on this list? Because my
I
suspicion is that's not the reason.
I ultimately think so. Like I don't think the Naismith voters are voting based on guilt or innocence at this point. I think they're firmly voting based on who's played in the games, what games have they played in, and how have they performed? Like, if this was a Tyler Kolek versus Terrence Shannon, Tyler Kolek gets the vote for me. If this is Dalton Connect versus Terrence Shannon Jr., Dalton Connect gets the vote for me. So I think it is fair that he is off this list, regardless of the guilt and innocence. I think it is based solely on availability of Terrence Shannon this season.
Well, there you have it. For at least one topic, Austin's the more optimistic person. I'm taking the negative slant. I think he's kind of been written off uh, any of the postseason awards. I mean, 6 games is a lot of games, but it's not a lot of games. You know, especially if he plays well the rest of the season and continues his performance. You know, playing at the level that he showed us against Michigan. But I guess my
I,
message to go ahead.
I do think though it's a different 6 games. If you told me he missed like Fraley Dickinson, he missed like Colgate, he missed like these games that don't really matter, then I would say, yeah, those games obviously aren't. But he's missed 6 conference games, which is an absolutely large, substantial picture of who the best player is on a college basketball roster and in the country. So I do think the timing of the games really matters in this kind of situation.
Mhm. Regardless, I will. Little message I do have for Illini Nation is if he's not on the lists at the end of the year, I've been seeing it today. You know, in the replies, hey, where's TSJ? Where's TSJ? All you're kind of doing is giving other fan bases ammunition to get us triggered even more. Like, oh, well, this list doesn't allow the R word. I'll just say that it's one of those where, as a community, I really think that whether you're on Austin's side or my side, if you are more along the line of thinking of me, where you think he might be excluded on this award list because of off the court issues, I think we just kind of have to let it be and got to let Shannon do his thing on the court. And we just got to come to understand that, it's unfortunate and we're all bummed out about it, but don't let ourselves get triggered into getting into these online fights, whether it's on YouTube or Twitter that I've been seeing, particularly, the fans from West Lafayette, Indiana, when you're following and you're a fanatic of a college sport, there's a lot of trash talk going on. And unfortunately, this is a topic where I don't know if trash talk is really warranted. And to me, I kind of get more disgusted by it. And so for me, it's just one of those where I just kind of sit back and relax and I'll talk to it about, with you or other Illini fans. But I just,
Listen,
my word, let me just wrap up. My words of advice to
yeah,
Illini fans is just don't get too concerned with it. It is what it is, but let's just sit back and enjoy the last couple of weeks that we have Terrence Shannon in an Illinois uniform.
I mean, like, I don't think I would go that deep with it. I mean, the best award that Terrence Shannon can win is the miniature version of the national title. That would be national title game MVP. Another great award that he could get is All East team whenever the actual regions are announced, or All West team of of Illinois' region. I mean, that's the awards that are truly going to matter at the end of the season, because we all know who's going to win National Player of the Year. That award's locked up. It's going to be Zach Edey from Purdue. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts that's going to happen that Zach Edey can lose that award. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. If coming in second versus coming in seventh, no one's going to care at the end of the year. So, just let Terrence be the dominant player that he is in the NCAA tournament, and some good awards will follow. Some good draft pick will follow. And that's really going to make the difference between future recruiting and not. It's not going to be this award that's already been locked up for a long, long time.
Look at that. When we record episodes later on at night, you become the positive Peter and I become the negative Sonny. Wow. I like to see the side of you, Austin.
I think it's because I'm on the Stanley Revolution now. My mother-in-law got this for me for Valentine's Day, so pretty pumped about it. So
I
first
won't
time
ask.
drinking
I
out
won't
of it.
ask what's in there, but is it worth the hype?
Yes, it is definitely worth the hype. It survives car fires, which I've learned on TikTok. I'll send you that TikTok. It's pretty incredible. But it's just water in here, staying hydrated. Maybe hydration is the key for me to be a little bit more positive because the other drinks maybe make me a little bit more negative, I guess.
Yeah, if I ever show my text messages from you, the audience would agree.
Don't ever release the text messages. It's like this is like Hillary Clinton or something or Donald Trump. Just
No, no,
let's keep those in the cloud.
it's our secret.
Sonny, I appreciate you as a co-host always, and thank you for watching live if you did on YouTube, but thank you for watching later on as well. So this has been the Atlantic Cast, a part of the Big Banter Podcast Network. Thank you, Sonny.
Take care, guys.